Good evening. The Jails, Law Enforcement, and Courts Committee meeting is called to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, could I have a motion to approve the agenda? We got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. The juvenile detention report did not come in until very late this afternoon. It was emailed to anybody. I don't see Director Collins there. Does anybody had time to read it or have any questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item. Item 4 on the agenda is the Sheriff's Office report. Chief Deputy Cantrell, come talk to us.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Cantrell with the Sheriff's Office. You've got the enforcement report in front of you. Nothing out of the ordinary report on it. It's kind of moving along as expected. Nothing extra to report. I will call your attention to the last page of our reports, which is the letter that the sheriff sent to the Madison County Sheriff's Office discontinuing our contract to house their detainees. That's based primarily just on two factors. One is that our jail is full, and the other factor is we just don't have enough people working down there to take care of their detainees and ours too. So we've discontinued that contract effective January 1st. We will give them some time to move out the people they have in our jail, but we won't be accepting any new ones after January or after December 31st. So that's something new on the horizon. The last thing I'll just call your attention to is tomorrow is the anniversary of the 2-year anniversary of the murder of Stephen Carr, a Fayetteville police officer who was murdered in his police car down here behind the police department. So no big public activities planned that I'm aware of. We'll observe us in Fayetteville will observe a moment of radio silence tomorrow night at 9:41 p.m. But I think there's some talk about something planned for April 13th, which his badge number is 413. So April 13th, I think there may be some kind of a public display or public recognition coming up, but nothing tomorrow as far as the public's concerned. But any questions? Randall will have the jail information whenever he comes up.
Justice Lemming.
You got anybody out? Or?
We are nobody in the jail with COVID right now. No employees out right now. We had some a couple weeks ago, but they are back at work. So nobody out for COVID, either employee or detainee. So fortunate for that.
How many employees down on?
About we're 43 in the jail, 6 in dispatch, and 7 in enforcement.
43, 6, and 7.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Major Densler, you're next.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Randall Denzer from the Sheriff's Office. Looking over our activity report, it's still about the same. It's increasing a little bit. You can you can see the numbers. And a lot of these failures to peers, I think, that has got out are getting caught with new charges. Seems like that's adding to our population as far as activity report. And you can tell on our graph, the pre-trials is up over 400 and kind of holding their own. So like I say, that's population still growing. You know, we don't hold any misdemeanors. We turn loose everybody that prosecutors and judges let us, and we're still gaining ground on population. On Madison County, you can see that he's holding, somewhere around 33. We've had up to 40, so, that'll help a little bit for maybe a couple weeks. The biggest thing is the same numbers that we had, like we said before, that on our last sheet on releases, last month was almost a record, but besides our 730 or 40 or 50 we're holding, we turned loose 318. So, that puts us really at 1,000 folks that we're dealing with. On top of that, just to keep you, so that you know what's going on, that the number is increasing more and more. I have 72 sleeping on the floor today.
Questions for Major Densler? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Justice Ushering.
So have we started with the pretrial people? Are we sending them are they getting the text messages and the other things that they were supposed to be getting?
Yeah, as far as I understand, that's working.
Has that made any difference?
I think it's too early to tell, but I know they are getting it. The system is working, but we should have some statistics on that shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the returning home update. Mr. Nick Robbins.
Hi. So we are a little over 7 months, about 8 months into the program. It's been rough. We're learning a lot. This is a very different population that we're serving. The last 2 months, we've kind of seen some pretty exciting stuff. Our first graduate actually got offered a supervisor position at his job, so he'd be going on salary. This is an individual that had been incarcerated numerous times for lots of small stuff. Just kind of seeing him coming and going, and to now see, where he's at. He's in a leadership role within our organization as well, and so we're seeing fruit from the graduates, all the graduates that we have. 100% success rate. No one's been rearrested. No one's using, and everyone is employed. So that's exciting. Of our first 7 months, we have done 140 drug analysis, so to see if anybody's using drugs or alcohol, and only 2 of them came up positive. So that is very significant for our population. So those that we're working with that are staying in the program, they're tracking really well. We're still trying to get our numbers of completion up because we are having individuals fail within their opportunity. So that's kind of where we're at. We're also getting ready to, in a couple days, sign an MOU with UAMS, and we're going to bring a fatherhood component into our program. So we're looking to enhance it every day. And so of our client base, 66% of them are fathers. And of just today, I reached out to 22 of the dads, and they have 42 total children. And so we are looking to drastically impact that with this partnership with UAMS. They're going to start going through classes. They're also going to have some incentives to be able to get some more family engagement and activities in the community together. And then they'll also have 6 months of aftercare support, so case management. And then we'll look to implement family counseling as well. So that's one of the areas that we felt that we were lacking. And when UAMS said that, hey, they have this grant and these resources, we were excited to come alongside them. And so we are in partnership with them from now until 2025 in this new program. So, yeah.
Questions for Mr. Robbins? Justice Deakins.
Director Robbins, I just want to say thanks, and I want you to keep the course. We knew this wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
And these types of changes are not going to be easy, but I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to you continuing to learn and bringing that to our court so we can hear about it. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? And Nick, I want to say thank you also. I've made several trips to your facility.
Yeah.
I've got my wife coming once a week, bringing him stuff. So,
We appreciate the treats, the
It's-
drinks, everything. We appreciate it.
so it's working if I can keep up. Thank you. Mr. Durrett, why don't you just move up here and you two stay right here for item number 6. Give us an update on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee.
Well, Nick is passing out kind of a framework, and I think it needs to be pointed out, these are not specific requests. I don't want y'all to look at the dollar figures. These are estimates. This is where we're looking way on down the road, and we've been spitballing, and this is kind of what we've come up with as a framework for where we're headed. But we haven't looked, so we're not here asking the quorum court for this money right now. So, because we don't have any specifics, and we also haven't looked into other sources of revenue for this. So we're in the process of doing interviews for the director for the coordinator position. Thanks, Nick. It's been a long day. My brain's not working 100%. Not that it ever does, but in any event, so we have just kind of laid out a framework for what we've been doing so far. So I'll kind of let Nick jump in a little bit, and we'll kind of go back and forth and talk about what we've been talking about.
So one of the first things that we really focused on was the efficiency in which we get our clients into diversionary opportunities. So in Washington County, we have a number of them. We've got your Veterans Court, you got your drug court, and you got the Community Alternative Program, amongst others. And so what we did was we reached out to drug court and pulled their numbers. For the first 10 months of 2021, the individuals that were accepted and placed into drug court had served 60 days in jail prior to their acceptance, which seems excessive. You would think that would be their sentence, but no, that's just for the opportunity to get into the thing that they're going to be sentenced to do. So what we look to do in working with Judge Beaumont and our different subcommittees is we talked about having a diversionary assessor, so a staff member that's focused directly on assessing individuals within their first few days of arrival to jail to find out if they would potentially fit for a diversionary setting. And then take those, so let's say there's 10 people that came in and 5 of them seem like, yes, the type of charges are ones that would qualify for diversionary. Go ahead and send those 5 names to the prosecutor. Prosecutor oversees them and goes, hey, these 3 of the 5, I'm interested, and it just keeps going around to each person, and then it gets actually assigned an attorney. So right now, an individual that's incarcerated in jail for the first 30 days does not have an attorney. So then there's no negotiating, there's no programming you can look into because they're just there. And so what we're looking to do is then those individuals will be expedited. And this position, this diversionary assessor, would be the one connecting the dots all the way around, with the goal is within 30 days, you go to your arraignment within your first 30 days. And typically that's when you would meet your attorney for the first time. Our goal is, instead of meeting your attorney for the first time, you would sign your plea to be accepted into the diversionary program. So our goal would be the metric we would shoot for is 30 days on average in jail for somebody that gets accepted to a diversionary program instead of 60 days. That alone will free up lots of beds and be more efficient, because the longer you're incarcerated, getting into this diversionary setting, it's not ideal. You'd rather them get out sooner when they potentially still have their job or still have their housing situation, because those diversionary programs rely on those. So that's something we think by hiring one position that we can look to eliminate expenses in the future.
And let me jump in for a little bit. In terms of creating bed space or releasing individuals from jail, it's still a little bit early to determine how much this would help. Now, the 30-day goal is there's a lot that goes into this. So when you're talking about sending someone to a diversionary program, there are a lot of moving parts to it because, first of all, someone's got to meet the criteria, whether it's the charge, making sure the charge is appropriate, making sure the person's appropriate. So you have to have the person do that evaluation. They have to hook them up with the public defender if they don't already have an attorney, because they need to speak with an attorney to determine whether or not A, it's right for them as a person, but B, whether or not it's right for them from the criminal aspect of it. Because some people, when given the option, would prefer to do probation. So they need to have time to speak with a lawyer. They in turn need to, talk with a prosecutor. So that's why we're shooting for 30 days. But the type of individual that we'd be looking at, because at least based on how we've been doing it in the past, I say we, I mean we and those of us in the system in terms of those individuals who are in jail. I don't know and I don't want to ramble on here. I'm trying to, I have a point that I'm trying to get to, but when drug court started off, it was for your first offense users. We've gotten more into the people who have been arrested several times and other aspects haven't worked, other things, avenues haven't worked. So we're looking at more, I don't want to say habitual offenders, but those people who have come back on drug charges. And those people in jail that we're going to be targeting are most likely people who are sitting in on some type of parole violation or probation hold or something like that. Otherwise, I mean, the first person that, or the person that's got a first offense is probably going to be released on their own recognizance if, they don't have any history or whatever else. So that being said, it's kind of hard to tell how much space this is going to open up, but those individuals who are in jail, who are appropriate for the program, having someone who can identify those and go in there and assess them and get the ball rolling, we're going to get them out of jail and into the program and starting treatment a lot quicker, hopefully in half the time that we're doing now. If that all makes sense. I rambled quite a bit there, but I'm trying to get a lot of information in.
Is there any questions on that before we move to the next recommendation? Next recommendation would be 2 caseworkers. With the desired outcome be working on reentry plans to increase access to foundational services and decrease the likelihood of reincarceration. These individuals that are being released are very unprepared, and they're not equipped with much of anything. When you get released, majority of the time you don't even have a single form of identification. So you can't get your power turned on, you can't go get a job, you can't do really anything. So everything takes a lot longer when you got to prove that you exist. And so these caseworkers could start to open up those opportunities, but they can also make individuals aware of programs that they could tap into in the community, as well as getting insurance paperwork started and a number of things, with the idea that we know there are services that are foundational to be successful. There's things that we overlook and just don't think about in life that we have, and we can just get things done. But when you have none of those things and people expect you to succeed, it's unrealistic. And so to have somebody on site that is that point person, and not only can they be that point person while they're incarcerated, but also beyond. So when they get released, so let's say they were only in for a brief amount of time and somebody bonded them out, they still have access to that person that would be aware of who's hiring an area or what type of services are available to you, those sort of things. Right now, the current metric is there's one person in the county jail that's kind of become the go-to for all questions. I have only briefly met her. She seems like an amazing person, but it's very unrealistic that one person can work with 750 people, let alone the people that are also out that need to tap into those services. So the idea is that if you impact them and get them the services they need, they don't come back. If they don't come back, then we don't have such a strain on the beds, and that all would work out a lot better. Any questions on that? Do you have anything?
No. I think these last three are kind of, seem somewhat intertwined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying these last three seem somewhat intertwined, so I'll kind of jump in here at the end with, whatever words of wisdom I can provide.
So the next recommendation is reentry programming in the jail through a program coordinator. So this is, I've sat on national boards for chaplain services. This is a national issue that what happens in the county jail, because they're always understaffed, the person that is guarding the gates of services and classes is a elderly chaplain that may not be super efficient with the internet and managing lots of volunteers and training and overseeing evidence-based programming. But what is the best practice is those type of programs within a facility, cognitive behavioral, focused on victims' impact, the different things that they need to be available, and we don't have to look far. The NAACC Women's Facility right here, Warden Tabor, welcomes the community and has somebody that oversees all the services, and they have 30 classes a month being led by different organizations. Not because they're paying them, just because they open the door. And they train them, and they make sure they're healthy relationships, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're bringing in materials that are benefiting the ladies that are there. And if you have somebody that's their job, and they're being held accountable on how many services were done, how many volunteers were in there, how many certificates did the individuals get, what you'll do is you'll see an employee start bringing people out the woodwork wanting to come in and impact these men and women that are incarcerated. And what that does is that it creates a connection that goes beyond that incarcerated setting, that goes to the community. And that's where the connection really needs to be. If there's a mental health provider coming in and teaching classes and raising awareness of the value of your taking your medications and being healthy and eating right and doing all those things, then when you get out, you've already have that relationship. So that's where you're going to go to when you need help. We see that in our program. We do 27 classes a week in our program. So we have 27 organizations that come in and provide services. And because of those services, we actually have stuff that goes on beyond our building, because our staff, we just can't do it. And neither can the sheriff's department. Sheriff Helder isn't running around the community trying to see how everyone's doing. It's unrealistic. So to have these, bridge the gap between these partnerships and these relationships would be very important. So the current metric is there is a life skill coach that meets weekly with the females of the 309 detainees. A lot of this, there's not a lot of programming because of COVID, so obviously we need to get to a point where we feel comfortable doing that. But let's be honest, if we're comfortable with our kids going to school and ACC requires my guys to go to class every single day, I think we'd be good taking to a volunteer with a mask on in there and teaching some classes and getting these individuals moving forward. My suggestion is I would probably contract that out to an organization that already has experience in programming, and so that you're not taking the full cost of a program, but just potentially a partial cost of what it would look like for that person to do that. And then obviously you need to have somebody within the jail to come alongside them to make sure they're trained properly and everything is being done safely and no one's being taken advantage of or doing anything the wrong way. And then the last one, and this is the big one, is a program building. If we're looking to expand in anything, we should expand into classrooms, into offices for counselors. Every nonprofit I've reached out about this, I said, if there was a programming space, if it's a double wide trailer with a classroom and a couple offices for counseling, Bible studies, anything, would you participate? And every single one of them said yes. And when we had the meeting and we spoke with Sheriff Helder, he also agreed. He goes, hey, if you can get a building, rolled in there, like we can make that happen. So that was encouraging that he's considering that thought. So obviously we'd have to go through the process a lot farther before, he'd sign off. But what you're doing is you're creating a space When people become aware of that space, I promise you we'll have some colleges reach out and start offering some classes. We'll have some GED magically appear. We'll have a lot of different training. We'll probably have some employers that be interested in teaching some soft skills. I have employers call me every single week looking for employees. I have employers every single week offering just a new one. Last week offered to just come in and teach different type of job training skills, interview skills, how to write resumes. So there's people being willing in the community. Again, that's not a financial thing. Once you get the original cost, and that program coordinator would be the one that oversee the use of the building, making sure everyone gets scheduled, all the different religions get an opportunity to get in there, all the different education providers and other groups. So that's kind of right now. The current metric is there's a small room with about 10 people, so just limited access. And then there's also some people that can come into the pods. I don't know if you guys have been into the jail. It's not great to try to teach class when somebody's going to the bathroom or showering next to you. Super awkward. But I did that for years. So I would just, if we had another building, that'd be awesome. Probably get a lot more people in there to teach too.
This kind of goes hand in hand with the pretrial services, or lack thereof right now, because I think that that's looking at this whole situation. Look at the big picture. That's kind of what I've wanted to focus on, because I think that could possibly. I'm focused on two things. I'm focused on the jail and I'm focused on the system itself. And right now the system itself is clogged, and it's clogged because we have a lot of FTAs and a lot of people getting rearrested. And a lot of it is just due to repetitive criminals, and a lot of it is it could be just irresponsibility. I mean, some of these people that fail to appear, some of them are just irresponsible. And the uptrust is great. That's the texting people, but I don't have the exact numbers. But from what I understand, one issue they're running into is the same issue that public defenders run into every day, is that the number that they previously had for their client is no longer any good. And so the messages aren't getting out to the individuals. They're switching numbers, they're losing service, whatever. So it's not always, those text messages aren't always getting through. I think with pretrial services, I think that we can benefit individuals who are going to remain incarcerated until their court date, and the people who are outside, who are released before their court date, because I don't think we can just let people go. I think that we benefit more if we can find a way to provide services for individuals who are released. I think it's going to do nothing but benefit them and us, because my position on this committee is based on my position as prosecutor, but I also view it as a citizen. And so what we have to realize is that most of these people are, the individuals who are incarcerated are going to be released and are going to be out in society in a short period of time, because a lot of these people are going to be, they're not all violent individuals. They're not all rapists and murderers and other sex offenders and whatnot, and aggravated, robbers. And so these are individuals who are going to be back in the system. And I think that we benefit more from having those individuals who are prepared to reenter society and become tax-paying citizens than we are, we benefit more than we do just paying to house them. I mean, there's obviously some people who need to be there. There are people who are dangerous. There are people who just won't show up, who are just absolutely refuse to show up, and we've given them multiple chances, and they keep deliberately missing court dates. But there are certain situations, I think, that a lot of these individuals can benefit from, whether it's drug treatment, whether it's job training, whether it's just the basic things of figuring out how to handle a checking account. As as we talked earlier, the interview skills. I mean, Nick talked about interview skills. There are a lot of employers who are looking for people. So a lot of these things can be covered with pretrial services, but it's going to take quite a bit of money. And when I said I want to just kind of introduce a framework, this is what we're looking at right now. And one of the main things that I'm looking for in a coordinator, which we're doing interviews for these coordinator positions, is I'm interested in grant writing, because at the end of the day, we want to. This committee needs to give the county the best bang for its buck, and we want to provide the most amount of services, the most number of solutions with the lowest possible cost to the taxpayer. I mean, that's one thing we're trying to do here, is we're trying to save the county money. And so that's one thing I'm looking for in a coordinator, is someone who can go out and find money, so that we're not having to come to you all every time and say, hey, we need more money for this, we need more money for that. But, I mean, that's what we're committed to. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So these are preliminary recommendations. They're kind of broad, and at some point we're going to narrow it down, and we're going to have more specifics for you all. But that being said, unless Nick's got something else.
Yeah, I would say, you guys pulled us together to come up with some recommendations, and ultimately the next step is up to you guys. If you're sitting there going, hey, these two or these three or whatever, we want you to look into further, that's what we'll do. We don't want to spin our wheels on something you're going, I'm not interested in that. It's very broad, all the different things. I mean, we just took a trip this last week to Sebastian County to basically participate in a mental health court. So we're trying to learn some stuff that we don't have here and kind of what that would look like. So there's a bunch of different things we're looking at. But right now, here's the four things that we originally brought. And if that's some interest to you, that you'd like us to move further and have some specific answers, that would help our group as we're coming back together next year, especially with this new coordinator position filled, and say, hey, you're tasked towards getting what the quorum court wants. The justice piece had these questions. We need to bring concrete answers. And so ultimately, we're looking for some direction from you all now that you've kind of heard what our first initial ideas are.
Any questions for Nick or Matt? Justice Lemming?
Don't point that toward me. You can answer. Yeah, I know.
I already told him, I go, if he starts, I'm getting behind you.
I'm gonna.
The building you're talking about, do you want it close to the jail or in the jail?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, it would need to be in the jail, inside the fence.
So if they had a place in the jail would work, would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the personnel that you're after, you probably don't want them tied to the jail.
The personnel for.
Kind of like the coordinator, if they was somebody.
Correct, yes, that would be
You want
most
them
likely to be
totally separate
contract.
so the sheriff wouldn't have to deal with that.
Absolutely. It'd be contracting those positions out.
Okay.
Here's the problem, and I'm by no means contradicting Nick here, but this is one of the issues that we're running into is you need some place in the jail for those people who are in the jail to get classroom-type instruction. But the issue is going to be those people who are out of custody, and that could be a potential issue of having something within the confines of the jail for a couple of reasons. I think, I have no research on this. This is just from the top of my own head. If someone is bonded out from the jail, it may make it less likely for them to participate in programs if they have to go back within the confines and the walls of the jail in order to do it. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing to have it somewhere down there, in that vicinity. But for those people who are out of custody, I don't know that they're going to want to participate in programs that are inside. And the other thing is we're still going to be affected by COVID. And I don't know that the jail is going to want us bringing people back in, those who would want to get services. I don't know they'd want to come, if the jail would want them to come back in, you know, it could create a COVID risk, so.
You made a comment there a while ago that they go through your program and they're still a felon. When they come out, they don't have driver's license, they can't get to work. What's their plans for there? Is it just when you're done with them, you throw them out in the porch and they have to deal with it, or do we continue on to go take them to work and to take them to the daycares for their kids? I mean, where do we
Yeah.
go with that?
So it kind of depends on how easily we can scale it. So if we're looking at organizations that aren't getting paid and some volunteer stuff, right, they just go to a class, come up with some great ideas, have a relationship out in the community, but then it will be up to them to engage into that relationship. For us right now, like in our building for returning home, we've got our residential side, but then we also have the side that's for the community. And so they can come in and get any services. We're not taking them to work, but we are showing them where they can go to work with us in walking distance or biking distance. All of our guys start off riding a bike. So we're in partnership with Pedal It Forward. They build us bikes. They just told me to go get 13 more tomorrow. And then we check them out, and the guys can get twice as far as they can walking, save up their money, get a moped, save up their money, get a car. Within 90 days, they got transportation. And I mean, that's the reality of people living in poverty. That's the steps they have to take. And so we do a thing, it's bridges out of poverty, kind of go through the steps they need to take. So that's where these folks are. And because they'll be all over the county. So it's not realistic to, one group is gonna hold anyone's hand, but they are gonna show them the right way. And as hard as they're willing to work, this community will embrace that.
Yeah, I've got a niece that comes down here to the ladies deal here, and the
Yeah.
church down at Greenland, they work good in there. My niece really likes all that stuff that's going on in there. Over the 7 or 8 months that y'all been doing this, how much bed space you think you've saved?
Are you talking about my program?
Yes.
We got 10 beds. So we have 10 beds at a time. An individual stays for 90 days. So yeah.
And I don't know that Nick's program is really designed to save a whole lot of beds. I think it's, well, in the short term, that is. I mean, this is, with Nick's program, and I don't want to speak for Nick, but the way I view it is that's a long-term solution. That's saving us beds long-term, because you're going to have someone who's going to go through the program and they're going to get skills they didn't have before, and they're going to develop a different work ethic from what they had before. And so with Nick's program, you're going to have to look down the road to see the beds, the saving in bed space, because those are people who aren't going to be coming back, as opposed to, it's not like going to a Mexican restaurant and getting your chips and salsa immediately, that immediate gratification. It's on down the road where you're not having the same people show up over and over again, because that's another big problem that we're facing. These people coming back and again and again.
Yeah, so how do we help the jail situation where we're overcrowded, people still sleeping on the floor, and that number's going right back up? I mean, the program's working, and it's working for a few, I understand that, but the jail program is still out of hand.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The hope is, what our goal is, to throw out a lot of different things, and each thing's going to take a piece. If this one reduces the amount of time they're incarcerated, if this one actually reduces the need for the beds, if this one keeps them out twice as long, let's say it doesn't even keep them out forever, just twice as long. So instead of them going back 4 times in the year, they only went back twice. So as you start throwing a bunch of different options at them, we think as a group we can start to tackle this a little better. And again, it's about creating a better efficiency and effective of our current resources we have in each department. And if we all do a little better, we believe we can make the system a lot more effective.
And that's kind of my thing is, not that I don't care about the jail problem right now. I'm concerned, my main focus is on system efficiency. And I think the two go hand in hand because the jail, a lot of the overcrowding is due to system inefficiency. And a lot of that inefficiency is because you have people who aren't showing up for court. And that's one of the main reasons why that's one of the main criteria we use in keeping people incarcerated is whether or not they're a flight risk. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of pretrial services, because you have pretrial services, and I think that a component of these pretrial services needs to be somebody, I think maybe a little bit different than the uptrust, just calling them. I think it needs to be someone who is actively reaching out and giving them reminders and offering services and whatnot, to make sure, because if we had a situation where our failure to appear numbers, they're through the roof since we've been doing this, releasing people from jail. And I don't say that as a reason why that we should discontinue what we're doing, because I still think that it's the right thing to do when you have someone who is not right now a flight risk or a safety risk to the community. I think that it's still the right thing to do. They shouldn't be sitting in jail simply because they can't afford a $1,500 bond. But the problem that we're coming up with is you're having a lot of these people who don't show up for court. And if we can stop that, you're not going to have these people who are back in jail on a failure to appear warrant on a $50,000 bond. So that's where I think a pretrial services can come into place if you've got someone who can keep track of these individuals and make sure they show up and make sure they get services they need, because lots of times when you've got somebody that may not have failed to appear, but they've been arrested for the 5th, 6th, 7th time, and we can't get their case resolved because they keep getting arrested. The vast majority of these times of those situations, it's either drugs or it's drug related. And so if you've got someone out, that can keep monitor them or whatever and provide them, show them, you set up services for drug treatment where they're starting drug treatment early on instead of after their case has been disposed of. You're going to have, I think, better outcomes with those individuals because they're getting off drugs faster than they would if we waited till the end of the day. So I realize that I rambled on for about 7 minutes answering a really simple question, but there are no simple answers to any of these problems, and they're very a number of different layers involved. And so that's why there's not just one solution where we come up to you and say, hey, here's how we fix the problem. You've got to attack it in a number of different ways.
And just one thing real quick, so I think we have 21 people on the committee. Ultimately, all 21 of us are going to have to figure out a way to be more efficient in what we do. So each of us have our own thing. I mean,
Well, that's like this horseshoe here. He said his was to take care of this and get this fixed. Well, we've got a jail to take care of. We got
Yeah,
police officers to
absolutely.
take care of. We got y'all to take care of. We got everything to take care of. And so it's hard to make all that work smooth and we can't let the jail we can't just let it flood. I mean, and I know you're trying hard and you're doing good. If you can save one life, you're doing good. If you can save 10, that's even better. But I'm just saying, there's a lot on our plate to try to mingle through.
absolutely.
There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. Are there other questions for these two gentlemen? Thank you, guys.
All right,
We'll see you shortly.
All right.
Item number 7 is the public comment period. There's a 12-minute comment period with a 3-minute limit for each individual speaking. We'll start now. I ask if you want to address the committee tonight, be prompt, and let's have at it. Please state your name and where you live, please.
My name is Maeve Corto, and I live out in rural Elkins, and there. This is wonderful, what they're doing with that returning home, and I paid close attention to all that. Part of the puzzle is the young people. You know, we just had that terrible shooting up there in Oxford, Michigan or wherever, and mental health problems and the young, you know, getting out is part of the problem with people getting in jail in the first place. I mean, we got recidivism and we got all that. We've got people, the foster care system is, a lot of it, they've got incarcerated people. So it's a little bit about getting some of that COVID money to help people who are in the communities right now trying to do things. I know I'm not involved in a lot of that. I'm just out in the county trying to make a living. But I know that there are people, just like these fellas said, who are really, they're ready and willing to help, but need a little bit of funding maybe initially, something like mental health, well, talking about it. Is it Sarah Moore has tried to get a way that we can all talk about some of these things. I live out in the county and there's a lot of drugs, and I've seen this recidivism thing. I've seen people who are pushing 40 now, and they've been incarcerated a lot of times. And the young women, they start off young, they'll have a child, that guy goes to big prison, and she has a child with, well, someone else who's not in prison, and they go to prison. And we do need to be aware that mental health issues and family problems are huge, and I'm watching my 3 minutes here carefully, but we have to be aware there's a thing called adverse childhood experiences that are the thing that feeds the prisons. And it's the things that have these, like this kid who did the shooting, he was crying out for help, and his stepmom got him a gun. I mean, it was, and he used it, but he has a mental health problem, and I'm reached the end of it. But if we could talk and work with the young people a lot more, that would be a great thing.
So Robert Dennis, Prairie Grove. I'll be very blunt and very short. It is time to expand the Washington County Detention Center. If my loved ones or someone that I love and care for is arrested, and then they're put in the Washington County Detention Center and they sleep on the floor, I have some savings left, and I'll spend every dollar of it to hire John Everett to sue the county and reach out as far as the quorum court if that happens. And government is slow working because we don't act on needs soon enough. So we need to start thinking about, I know it's beautiful to help people, and I know the returning home is a good program. You can have that, but you're going to have to think about doing what is right and making the jail big enough that people don't sleep on the floor. So, thank you.
Next speaker, seeing none, this